Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are, and thanks for joining today's session. So today's Lemongrass Live, our monthly informal debate on topical topics, is all around the wonderful topic of proof of concepts. That's a bit of a tongue twister. So a quick introduction. My name's Ben Lingwood, and I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here in Lemongrass. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping points. So firstly, this is an interactive session. So anything pops into your mind, any questions, anything you agree with, don't disagree with, we'd love to hear from you. There should be a questions box somewhere down on your right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to use it. We'd love to hear from you. And secondly, just a notice that we are recording this session. So if you're not catching it live, welcome to the replay. And just to let you know that we'll be following up with you on an email afterwards with a link to the recording. Right, so just to get today's match kicked off, maybe football's not a good analogy to use, but let's roll with that. Let me introduce my two colleagues here. So Tony, introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Tony Brain. I am the SVP for the implement business within EMEA, and that's my role and what I'm going to be talking about today.
Thanks, Tony. John.
Hi, John James, account director, been in SAP for 25 years, started an ABAPer and yeah, worked my way through consultancy, PM, and now to now hopefully looking after customers as an account director.
I want to see you fill out your ABAP skills again.
Absolutely, Tony, they're still fresh.
Trust me, nobody wants to see John's code. Right, so let's get going. So today's topic is on proof of concept. So let's set the scene a little bit. So firstly, my view, I think POCs, or POC, the phrase is often overused. So people use it all the time. Often it's misunderstood. People don't always use them effectively. So let's frame what we mean by proof of concepts when we look at, in our world, migrations of SAP solutions into Amazon. So really, what we encourage people to do when we look at proof of concept is pretty basic, really. Use a proof of concept to answer the question about what scares you, what concerns you. So typical themes that we see: security, people worried about moving to the public cloud. What's that going to look like? Is it going to be secure for my data? What's the performance going to be like? You know, is it going to be performing the same way as in the server in the cupboard under the stairs that I can eyeball in my own building? I've got a big system. You know, is it going to be possible to migrate it to the cloud within the downtime period that I can facilitate? Prove that. Perfect example. Or maybe you need to convince your organization. Maybe there's some skeptical people, some people with concerns around what moving to a hyperscaler means. They're the typical things that we mean by a proof of concept, proving things, validating things that actively concern you or your broader organization. The other thing that we'd say is don't be afraid to think big. So you will always hear wild claims from our salespeople. I'm not pointing at you, John. But if it's really as easy as they say it's going to be, then get them to prove it, right? So if they say that moving the production system is really easy and they can do that in 24 hours, prove it. Again, that's another very good use for a POC. Or if you want to see the technical impact of a change, new UI, performance, automation, adopting a DevOps way of working, using automation, what does that mean with your own system? Again, a great way to prove it. So think bigger, and I think the thing that I'd reflect on that is in an Amazon world, because we're not constrained by all the prerequisites before about getting tin and getting people and setting things up, you can jump straight to the main course, skip the starter, and you can go straight to that proof point much quicker, meaning you can validate a lot more. But that's just me talking. So Tony, let me swing the camera lens over to you. So you are, as you said at the beginning, our Yoda of delivery. Bit taller, less green, but Yoda
and slightly younger as well, Ben. I think you'll find.
Slightly younger, but not as wizened. And I know, you know, being open, the word POC makes you flinch quite often, right? And it's a never-ending cycle of delivery commitments. So, what's your voice of experience, oh wise one?
Yeah, exactly. So, I think putting my delivery hat on, so the POC can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and one of the key things that you have to do is actually nail down the scope of what it is you want to test, to prove out a little bit what you were talking about earlier on, and just make sure that that scope is defined and that you have a clear exit criteria so you know when you're finished. So if it's performance, it's what sort of performance you're trying to achieve and what you can demonstrate and how you can get there. If it's security, what sort of elements of testing are you going to put on it so that you can prove that you've actually met that security requirement? I mean, a proof of concept can be many things to many people, as I said, and unless you have that scope clearly defined within your organization before you start, one of the things that you'll find is somebody else will come in from within the team, within the organization, and say, oh, well, if you've got that up and running, can we just try this now? Can we just do this? And you, project manager's nightmare, scope creep, it just goes on and on and on, and you never get to that successful conclusion about what it's meant to do. And that's what I mean about defining the terms, the scope, getting that execution nailed down, and getting your exit criteria agreed up front, so everybody is clear on when you're going to be finishing it.
I know on the sales side, I'd call those success criteria, Tony. You know, it is, you're genuinely trying to prove something. Not, you know, it's not about too much about delivery in that classic sense, but you're trying to prove something is a success, so you can prove to the business that you're, you know, this is a good route forward for you. So getting the success right. Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is the timing of it. I mean, I've alluded to it there, but it needs to be a sort of short and sharp approach to doing the POC. 10 months is not a POC, that's a project. Yep. So where we need to be is in that sort of, you know, 6 weeks to 8 weeks time frame to prove out what it is you want to know, get all of that the knowledge out of the POC, and then use it in your project going forward, so that you've basically made the most of that POC and be able to do that. What I would say about the POC, they can be reusable. It doesn't have to be a throwaway exercise. So understanding at the beginning on what you want to do after the POC is an interesting point, because we have a number of customers who start the POC as right, I want to set it up, I want to do it on one system, but then I'm pretty sure I know the route I want to go, and therefore the base of what we are building needs to be able to be extended to be able to take it forward and use it for the rest of my estate. And it's good to know that sort of thing before you go into the POC, because obviously you can build in different things as you go along. If we know we're going to be extending it out for the full estate, then we put more security, networking, design, understanding, all the tooling set that we're going to use to support it. We can put that in at the start in the POC and basically get the basics down and then build on that as we go along. If we know we're not going to take it beyond the POC and it's going to be scrapped and taken away again, then we can reduce the cost, keep it down to a minimum, just get the security and the networking, allowing you to do the connections and do the testing. And that way, it's a good way to keep the costs down, get a very short and sharp process, and get the decisions made off the back of it. And I guess the other thing is, obviously, everybody thinks about money, the funding of it. It's a good way to fund the start of your project and be able to pick that up and take it forward. So the funding, and I'm going to hand over to you, John, because in terms of costing, funding, and everything else, it's probably better if you cover that off.
Well, it is a really good way to start off your project. Obviously, if you're not ready to start your project, you do a POC first to get over your worry. But if you're pretty convinced you're going to go ahead, POC is a great way to start the funding of your project. Amazon is very flexible about that. So, you know, project POCs can cost sort of in the sort of region, typically between $10,000 and $100,000, something like that. But there's a general metric from AWS that they'll support without much discussion. They'll support 10% of your what's called your annual run rate. So the run rate of the resources you're going to put into Amazon over a year at the final kind of number once they're all deployed. So, but the other thing to say is that Amazon are very flexible. If you've got a good reason for doing something, obviously you're headed towards a cloud decision. They're incredibly supportive. It's a really great model for you to test out. And they're very keen to support you here, because you're proving something, you're moving towards a decision as to where to put your systems, your infrastructure into the cloud. So, I mean, some of the other things to think around that financial decision, you know, it's not all about the money that it will take from the partner. you should think a little bit about the money that you're going to need to spend on your side. Now, it doesn't take too much of your own resource, but obviously you need to factor that into your costing. You do need to give some commitment to spend some time with the partner. You'll be spending some time in the design and then possibly in the testing, some data, the usual typical sort of parts, but it's primarily you should be relying on the partner. It's a good test of the partner here. Do they understand how it works with AWS? You know, you're road testing the partner as well as the infrastructure. But you should think about the people who are going to be involved, how much time over those 6 to 8 weeks that Tony puts it. Can you spare them from other projects? Is it a good time? And that sort of thing. But you should really be challenging your partner here as well. You know, you should be thinking, right, I understand Amazon going to fund this. I'm going to have a small amount of my own resource, but the majority of it should come from the partner. You know, should come from Tony's team, and then basically will be deployed to give you the best experience. You can test out the wild claims of the sales guy during his pitch. This is really a chance to actually, you know, just you look under the covers and check that it's not just airy-fairy sales stuff. You know, it should be real. It should be real, and it shouldn't give you stress in terms of finances. It should be a little bit of resource. You do need to commit a little bit to it to make it a success. But equally, over that 6 to 8 weeks, you should be trying to get something established. If you get it established, that's great. If you fail for whatever reason, at least you fail quickly, and then you can just try another route, try a different approach that's going to work. You know, another benefit of the POC is you can fail fast and move on to the next thing. So I think it's a tremendous model. It's just part of getting going very quickly. I have really good experience in quite a few of my customers who have just moved straight from a POC and moved on to their main project because they've been so impressed with the performance or the automation, or actually with some of the stuff we've done for them. They've been impressed with us as a partner. It's genuine to say that the team can really deliver. So yeah, I mean, it's been successful, and people have moved through from a POC to a project quite quickly afterwards, or even just gone straight through, used the POC as the starting point for their project. So yeah, I mean, just coming back to you, Ben, when you're speaking to prospects, customers, what sort of areas do you see them using POC? What sort of examples in real life do you have?
So you mean how do I fix your wild claims? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a good question.
Usually that's my job.
We use Tony's Jedi forces to mind trick. No, but look, being a bit more serious. So look, there's really sort of two areas that I see cloud proof of concept, certainly in our area, the sort of enterprise software being around SAP. First category is, I mean, I think we mentioned it quite a lot before, proving what we say we can do, that we can, right? So validating the cloud claims. So I'll give you some real life examples, right? So a common one we see is validating claim, for example, of a large database migration can be executed within the cutover windows. We all know downtime is a very prolific swear word in any large enterprise organization, especially around SAP, right, with what it does. It's a really common one. So, you know, a couple of examples we can sort of reference and mention are Transport for London. We recently took them live, let me think, about 4 months ago now. Again, as you can imagine, very large systems. It's running, you know, ticketing and sales and all sorts of solutions there. So downtime was really, really important, given they were also doing an OSDB migration, moving into HANA from a legacy solution. Downtime super important there. Another recent example was Aspen Pharmaceutical in South Africa, involved in the COVID response. As you can imagine, you know, very, very stressed industry at the moment with everything going on in the world. And again, downtime was very important, near zero downtime migration. So it was absolutely empirically important that they could prove that to themselves, to the business, to their sponsors, to their operations team, that was possible in the timescales that we were stating. Perfect use for a POC example there. Maybe at more the beginning stage, a lot of organizations are trying to work out what cloud means for them. Is it right for them? What does that mean? What is their business case? A lot of organizations now challenging themselves to say, what's our business case for the cloud? Difficult one sometimes, because it doesn't mean that you've got knowledgeable people in your organization that understand all the different levers around people, process, technology, governance, and all the areas that need to go into a business case. So we've just done one for a large bank in the Middle East, actually, exactly that. scenario that wanted to use a proof of concept to build the business case. They could take that back to their board to form a decision. Perfect example. Go build a business case, bring some expertise in, help you do that. That's a really good one. And then another recent one was around, John, one you're involved actually, Sisicam in Germany, right? Very large manufacturer there. Given where they're located. Sorry, John?
Sisicam in Turkey, as is my best pronunciation.
My pronunciation is horrific, and I apologise. But that, as you know, was related around speed and performance. So they wanted assurances that their UI, the GUI, moving the UI as well, was going to be performance. Again,
great moment. I remember the afternoon. We, finally got everything ready, which is great, and they'd run their usual long reports in finance team. Had a couple of other people in the business come along, and they're all, wow, it's really running really fast, and it's the same kind of size of architecture and size of machines, but it's actually running a lot faster than our current system. So fantastic, and that was the real light bulb moment for that customer. Let's go, really useful.
Yeah. So that perfect example of the blocker stopping them moving to the cloud, fixed in a POC. So that's a good example. So that's kind of block one. Block two, really, and I think just to sort of go through this bit, is new technology. So one of my jobs in Lemongrass is trying, and I repeat, trying to keep up with the innovation cycle coming out from Amazon. I think there was 1,200 new things released just last year, and we're on set to beat that this year. So you're drinking from the proverbial fire hose here. So again, a POC is a really good mechanism that you should keep using, by the way, to look at how those new technologies can be adopted by your organization, what it means, how that can drive improvements, not just in SAP, but beyond SAP as well. So a couple of examples here is we did some work with Heineken and built an insights data lab with them using data lake technology that was mixing non-SAP data with SAP data with procured data that you can get off the shelf to look for consumer insights. And then there's a really interesting one and a great one to go and do a rapid POC to go and validate if there are consumer insights in there. It turned out that there was, and that led on for a project, so that was one. Other ones we've done is, again, using native big data lake solutions to reduce the size of SAP systems. So we did that for a well-known plastic brick toy manufacturer, without mentioning names, to see if we could reduce the size of their BW systems. Again, turns out that we could, as another example. And then, going a little bit broader, we talk a lot about automation in Lemongrass. Customers want to see that. So, John Deere in the US, another organization we work with, wanted to see, well, can you actually provision a new SAP system from a copy of my production system with a mouse click? We want to do that. So that was another example as a proof of concept. So lots you can think about there, from proving it to extending it across the cycle there. As always, bring myself back. Tony Yoder, our resident anchor in delivery reality. So proof of concepts are always, great to prove that, but it's always important that the POC results in something real, and that goes then into a real delivery activity, if it's successful in proving to do that. So talk me through that transition from proving it to doing it.
Yeah, I guess part of that is having a project plan that effectively encapsulates the proof of concept as the first step, but it's not an isolated step. And so from there, what we would look to do is have a plan that lays out the next things that you want to do going on from that proof of concept. And it should obviously lead to, hopefully, a successful migration of systems or successful greenfield implementation, whatever it is we're looking to do. The proof of concept, as I think we've already said, it should shore up the business case. It should shore up the financials. So part of the process coming out of this may be that the proof of concept feeds into that business case, feeds into the financials, so it allows you to make the decision to go on to do the project. But of course, that can be built into the plan as well, that says, this is our proof of concept, here's our business case, here's the plan to deliver the rest of it and to get the benefit out of it. And I think that's the key thing, is getting the benefits at the end of the day. So proof of concept will deliver a some guidance that's going to let you go forward with it, but the project is what is going to deliver the benefits. And so hopefully you don't disengage those two and you keep them tightly coupled, so that you get that benefit and into the business as it goes forward.
I'd say
Sort of
almost all,
basically.
all of my POCs come with a business case off the back of it, in terms of at least the high level. This is what it might cost to both might move and then operate your SAP or other systems in the cloud. You should pretty much be guaranteed to get that out the back of your POC.
Right.
Excellent.
I'm gonna.
And well,
Sorry, go and finish that point.
no. If you've timed me out, if you don't want any more of my wisdom, that's fine. You carry on.
So just for the record, this is the only time I can time out a delivery, guys. So that's I'm going to enjoy that moment for a second. But I've just seen we've had some questions. I'm just looking at the other screen here. So first one, that's a good one. How can AWS help me, and why should we have to invest in a POC if we're unsure we're going to move ahead?
Sure, I can
John,
take that
I
one.
think that
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, the first thing is to say is that AWS, as I said, are very supportive of this process. It's a regular, established process, and they'll fund most POCs with a good, a good business, a good idea for what you want to test, it's a very well established process. They'll supply credits so that this won't cost you money. In fact, the partner and the actual infrastructure should come to you at no cost. Their time and the AWS infrastructure behind the POC for the resources you need. So that whole process should be something your partner can arrange for you, and we will put the time into making it a success. What you need to bring from your side, as I said, is a little bit in terms of the resources, key resources with information, the people who will talk to us in terms of what you need to do, how the design you want it to look, and what the requirements are. But once those are established, those success criteria are in place, it should be fairly well boxed off by the partner and AWS to just go away and get that proof in place for you. So I mean, AWS and the partner should really help make it a smooth, kind of easy process for you as a customer. And you shouldn't have to be talking about large amounts of investment as a customer. Just in case you don't go forward with things, you should really sort of think of it as sort of a maximum, I would say, of sort of 10 to 15 days of your time, of your resources. So quite limited in terms of the impact on your business. The people who are obviously busy, who have day jobs, the partner should be able to get that POC done and dusted and delivered with fairly minimal impact. And AWS will be very supportive all along the way in terms of their resources. They'll supply particular experts. If there's an area that you're really interested in, it's a niche area, then they can supply skills to help the partner. And obviously the partner will do the majority of the heavy lifting for you. So yeah, don't worry, just crack on. It's a great model.
Okay. What else have we got? Are there any limits on what I can run a POC on and the number of times? I'll take this one. So I think back to the point I was mentioning earlier, actually, I think it's important you almost recalibrate how you think about a POC, because it's really now not something you do just ahead of a project. It's almost a way of working, right? Build it into your way of working, your governance, your culture, the way your organization works. So as I mentioned before, with that relentless continuous innovation coming out from Amazon with platform and tech and new services and new platform solutions and technology, that's something that I would encourage most organizations to go and review. How can that help them? What does that mean for them? Or use a partner to help you do that as well. So it's something that you'll be continuously evaluating. A POC is something you don't just do once and forget. You should be continually looking at new technology. So use, to John's point earlier, use the fact Amazon have this sort of lovely credit solution where you can go in and try these things before you actually commit to them. It means that you can access those for hardly any cost at all, other than your time and intent to take a serious look at it, right? So I would say build it in. There is no limit on the number of POCs you can run, and start to build it into your ways of working as well, and use it to help develop your innovation cycles, where you're going with your roadmap strategies, and then also looking at developing your business cases. So yeah, crack on as many as you can cram in. There's no limit on the number of POC cycles. Right, what else we got? Here's a good one. What are some examples of proof of concepts that haven't worked, or you think should not have been run, or valuable activities? So, Tony, that's got to be you, voice of reality.
Yeah, well, it's obviously anything that sales were involved in, yeah.
No. Sorry, Tony.
Yeah. So I think the thing is, keep it realistic. So we've had examples of projects where, or POCs where people have tried to migrate their whole landscape as part of that, or wanted to do that. And that's what I said. This isn't the project. It's not a 10-month project. It's a short, sharp solution. So that's the first example. Second one is bad use of the cloud technology. So things like trying to use the cloud as your HADR solution. So trying to back up from your on-premise systems and putting it onto AWS, and it's not the right way to do it. So there are better solutions and more realistic solutions that we can get in place to do that. And then it's having the unrealistic business case as well. So performance. We talked about that at the start. We can move SAP systems to the cloud and give you superb performance, and you can spend as much as you like getting that performance, but what we're trying to do is get like for like performance at reasonable cost, not spending all the money on giving you the fastest, biggest possible system that's out there. And so having that mindset that it's taking costs into consideration and what it's going to be for your ongoing business. And then finally, I guess as part of the business case, is having realistic expectations of we could all go and buy a server from Bill down the road, who it's going to be cheaper than going on to AWS, but it's understanding all the rest of the functionality and the stuff that you've got within AWS that gives you the ongoing benefits, and the fact that it's secure and so on and so forth. Yeah. So the number of sort of mothballing systems I've done, different process, but where the system is under a desk or it's in a cupboard, and they're saying, right, okay, this really isn't secure, and we need to secure it. And AWS, perfect way of doing that.
Yeah, you need to take all the costs into account, don't you, when you're doing the business case? It's not just about the server. Obviously, somebody's got to look after the server. It's got to be powered. It's got to all those things. That the wider costs have to be considered when you do the comparison, because you're getting a lot out of your cloud that you just don't think about necessarily if you think about it in terms of a server.
Right, I think we're close to the end of match whistle. So let's wrap up with, from everything we've spoken about, your 3 top points. Desert Island question: what 3 points would you take with you from the discussion from today? So let's start with Tony.
Okay, I mean, I think the first one would be trying to be clear about upskilling your resources. You could upskill your resources during the POC, get more out of them, and get a happy team as well, so they know they're not going to be left behind once you start moving to the cloud, and that they understand what's going on as well. You could use the well-architected design, the best practice, and that will give you the good foundations, as I said, on the technical foundation in the first instance that makes it extensible and allows you to take that forwards. And building on that, the reusability element, so you can use it to accelerate your migration. You can get that foundation built and then be able to take it forward. That would be mine.
Thanks, Tony. John, same question.
Yeah, sure. Well, somebody answered the Desert Island question with, I'll take Wikipedia with me, please. But if I'm not allowed to do that, I'll give you 3 on POCs. So yeah, so remember that AWS will really support you here. They're very, very supportive of this process, and your partner, the same, should be a good chance to work with them. Flexibility on scope. So just ask for what you want. What is the thing that's worrying you? It really is quite a, regardless of the worries of you actually delivering it, which we'll give to Tony. The point is, ask for what you need. What is it that you're worried about? And that flexibility is there to get that in place. And then, yeah, use it, fail fast. So if it is something that's quite challenging, doesn't matter if you fail, as long as you get on with doing it fast, and then you can change your approach. So those 3 things I'd take away.
Thanks, John. And I think there's a couple of questions actually that I think I'll take some of those with me. So firstly, use the POCs as a business validator of new technology, in SAP, beyond SAP, use it to prove that mechanism and keep going with that dynamo. I do like that question, so run as many as you like, go for it. You use the mechanism, don't be shy, it's not a one-time activity, multi-thread those POCs. And then the third one, I think I said on the opening point, run them on specific areas of concern. If you've got challenges in your organization, people driving blockers, people with legitimate concerns they need validating, perfect way to use them. So I'd go with those three. So with that, I think the match is over. So I'd just like to thank my two colleagues.
You've won again.
Yeah, on penalties, never mind.
No extra time this week. So just like my colleagues for joining here. This session's been recorded, so we'll be sharing this again and recording on an email that'll be coming out to you shortly later. And hi if you're watching the recording. And our next Lemongrass live session in July will be on how to adapt to a DevOps mindset and new ways of working. So thinking about how automation drives your operations, governance models, and financial models. So with that, wish you all a great weekend, and thank you for joining.